Hello, and once again welcome to Brett's Game Awards, an annual video series in which I, the titular Brett, dole out meaningless awards to whatever games I happen to get my grubby hands on this year. Now, 2018 was pretty rough. I fell deeper into insecurity, neuroticism, and vice than I think I ever have. But on the bright side, I did find love! And, Avengers Infinity War came out, and those are both wonderful things. So if I had to sum it up, I'd say 2018 was... So I didn't spend that much time gaming for the first half of it. That being said, I did ultimately manage to beat 21 games in 2018, which means I lost the yearly competition with my friend Cass, so I guess we're 1 for 1 on that front. A modest list, but I was happy to finally complete my goals of beating every mainline Sonic title and the Fire Emblem trilogy on Game Boy Advance. Before we get into the awards, let's quickly lay down the ground rules. 1. Games do not have to be 2018 releases to qualify. These videos are a personal reflection on whatever I happen to play. 2. Games I completed generally take priority over games I didn't. And 3, not every award will necessarily return every year, but there will be constants, such as Best Game, obviously. With that out of the way, let the awards be awarded. Best Art Direction! Dragon Ball FighterZ. Once again, we open the list with a Dragon Ball game. This time for a much more flattering reason. Now, you don't typically expect AAA production values out of licensed games. After all, if Harry Potter, Darth Vader, or Shrek front a game's box art, it's guaranteed to sell. That's why it was so uplifting to see developer Arc System Works finally give Dragon Ball the loving treatment such an iconic franchise deserves. These guys know how to make anime-style art work in 3D, and this game is no exception. Straddling the line between 90s Dragon Ball and its modern look, the fighter's art style perfectly captures the series as a whole. That classic angular Toriyama goodness is in full force, and it's never looked cleaner. Due to snappy animations and clever perspective tricks, the art always feels authentically 2D, and never like a bunch of off-model dolls, which is a real accomplishment. Then there's the effects work. God, the effects work! Beautiful beams of energy, punchy explosions that illuminate the characters, and a healthy dose of screen shake manage to not only stay faithful to the source material, but perfectly sell the breakneck gameplay Dragon Ball FighterZ is known for. Surprise Darling Award! I must have tried to start Sonic CD at least a dozen times over the years, but I could never really get into it. Level design felt messy, a coherent difficulty curve was nowhere in sight, and I found the overall experience a bit disorienting. So you can imagine my surprise when I booted up Sonic CD in 2018 to discover my whole outlook had changed. Well, not exactly, I still think those are very fair criticisms, but this time the game finally clicked. I think Sonic Mania was just so good it gave me a foundational understanding of how to enjoy 2D Sonic. You just kinda roll with it. So, CD's shortcomings felt more like palatable quirks than irritating pace breakers. Rough around the edges it may be, Sonic CD carries an infectious enthusiasm. From start to finish, it captivated me with its wildly surreal, densely detailed worlds and an excellent soundtrack featuring possibly the greatest level complete jingle of all time. These old Sonics aren't perfect, but they are bursting with creative energy, and I am glad I eventually came around on this one. Most Interesting Protagonist! You might call this a slightly contrived award category, and you might be right, but I just needed an opportunity to gush about Audra B. Mills from Jeremy Gable's humble indie drama, Watch Me Jump. I don't think it's unreasonable to claim that we live in a time where the public scandal is bigger than it's ever been. With the rise of social media, scandal is now a worldwide spectacle. When someone screws up in the 2010s, they're not only on trial in front of friends, family, and, court, but us too. All of us. Their image, their life is all at our mercy. So wouldn't it be interesting to step into the shoes of someone profoundly affected at the ground level by our gossip of the month, specifically the monster who did the deed? You are the rising star in women's basketball, hero and role model to young girls everywhere, Audra B. Mills. It's just come out that you recently had a fling with another woman, so now the world knows the truth. You're bisexual. Also, you broke her wrist in an elevator. Yikes. Through a series of dialogue choices, you will navigate an absolute onslaught of social consequences, awkward corporate maneuvers, and guilt. How she deals with it all is up to you. It's hard not to empathize with Audra when you're in her shoes, regardless of what she may have done. She's likable, funny, driven, and the traits that made her a hero in the first place, that the world exalted her for, are intrinsically linked to what makes her a bad person. You might think a perpetrator of domestic abuse makes for a poor protagonist because we as everyday people can't relate to the immense weight of such a crime. But ultimately, I think this disconnect might be the game's secret weapon. When you're in the wrong in real life, it often doesn't feel like it. When you're called out, it often feels like an unfair attack. Throughout the course of Watch Me Jump, I was surprised to find myself growing resentful of my so-called justice. I felt like lashing out like she would. This protagonist gave me a lot to think about shame, loyalty, celebrity culture, and empathy. The story didn't exactly provide a clear-cut defense or a condemnation of people like Audra B. Mills, but it certainly provided food for thought.
Best Innovation Award!
Last year I counted innovation under the catch-all Most Impressive Award, but I've come to believe it deserves its own spotlight. I was tempted to give this award to A Way Out for daring to finally make that AAA co-op story game we've all been waiting for, and cleanly sticking the landing. But I never found the time to push through and actually beat the thing, so the honor instead falls to Her Story. Her Story is difficult to explain. You're presented with a PC interface and given a database of clips from various police interviews with a woman regarding the disappearance of her husband. Your goal is to sift through these clips and try to piece together what happened. The catch is that the clips are not shown in chronological order, and you can only see 5 at a time. The only way to find clips is to search by words or phrases used within them. Before you know it, you'll be thinking laterally, building a mental timeline, and descending into a deep rabbit hole of intrigue. It's just the right amount of obtuse. The entire game essentially takes place in your head, and as a result, each ominous discovery genuinely feels like your own. Much like Emily is Away, the old desktop setup is effortlessly immersive for being almost one-to-one with the sensation of using a real computer. But the live-action interviews are what really elevate this realism to the next level. I've never played anything quite like Her Story, and I'd absolutely recommend giving it a try.
It's About Damn Time Award!
This award goes to whatever game I should have beaten forever ago, but only just got around to beating recently. In my early days with Super Smash Bros. Melee, I, like many others, felt a particular affinity for Roy, the feisty red-headed swordsman from Fire Emblem: The Binding Blade. It never quite sat right with me that I, a so-called Roy fan, had never actually beaten his game. I wouldn't have my first foray into the Fire Emblem series until 2013, and wouldn't sink my teeth into the Binding Blade until 2016. Being the hardest entry I'd played yet, in a strategy franchise fraught with danger and permanent unit death, my run-through wasn't exactly world-class.
Oh god, they're all ganging up on him. Please, just, I beg of you, mercy, this is my best man. No! Fuck! Damn it! I did not want to lose that guy.
I decided I needed a break, but the longer I went without playing, the more intimidating it became to return. 2 years later, I finally knuckled down and completed Roy's journey for good. I can't say my fandom of Roy's character feels any more legitimate though. Roy was actually put in the Super Smash Bros. Melee as a promotion for the, at the time, upcoming Binding Blade. By the time his game actually came out, Roy's boisterous personality had been significantly reworked into a much blander, standard RPG hero. What made him such a cult classic character in Melee is nowhere to be found here. In fact, when Roy finally did return to the Smash Bros. Series 13 years later, Nintendo chose not to update him to better match his own game, but to double down on his Melee incarnation with a flashy new redesign. Is our collective memory of Smash Bros. Roy now considered the real Roy? It's like the more informed you seek to be on his character, the more he just devolves into an amorphous red haircut with a flame sword.
Most Addictive Award.
Speaking of Fire Emblem, it was actually running through the Sacred Stones that eased me back into the series. While it may look similar, okay, exactly the same as the other two GBA installments, it's actually a much more forgiving experience. Sacred Stones is full of quality of life upgrades like being able to visit shops whenever you want and grind your units on low-level monsters. Loosening the difficulty in a series founded on tense life and death decision making is a bit of a double-edged sword, but I think Intelligent Systems struck a nice balance that still preserves that satisfying core gameplay loop, even if it's a little more chilled out this time around. Being free to focus on making my units strong enough to wipe out entire squads by themselves was a liberating experience. Not to say the game is exactly easy, but I never felt worried I was going to totally ruin my save like with the Binding Blade. This kept the gameplay inviting to return to at all times, and consequently, Sacred Stones became the first game to really dig its hooks into me this year.
Hottest Dude and Chick.
And now for something totally vapid. These awards go to the video game characters that I would like to marry. First up for Hottest Dude, we have Theo from Celeste. When Madeline sets out on a soul-searching journey up the mystical Celeste mountain, she runs into Theo early on in her travels. Madeline and Theo quickly connect over their unique personal hang-ups and fears, the very feelings that brought them to this mountain. Theo provides a more objective and light-hearted balance to Madeline's neuroticism, and the unguarded vulnerability between these two characters is quite touching. I gotta say, this whole chance fireside meeting with a charming and emotionally open backpacker scenario does a lot for me. Look, even his dialogue boxes are plaid. Moving on to Hottest Chick, it's time to talk about the equally deep and sentimental qualities of Milky from Shock Troopers. Okay, fine, maybe I'm a little shallow, but look at this majestic pixel babe slaughter hundreds of soldiers in bloody conflict and tell me you're not in love. Oh, she's so cute I could literally die.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, how many beats is your heart allowed to skip before it's a problem?
Most Disappointing Award.
Did I mention I played a couple Sonic games this year? It's finally time to discuss Sonic Forces. As I'm sure many of you know, the Sonic series has a history of refusing to effectively iterate on its strengths and instead finding an innovative new way to fail every installment. But for that magical period between 2008 to 2011, things were different. Sonic Unleashed solidified a new foundation for the franchise, Colors cut out the frustrating bloat, and Generations went on to be in contention for best Sonic game of all time. So then what did Sega do? They dropped the whole gameplay style, and found an innovative new way to fail. But then, hope! In the wreckage of a burning city came the announcement of Sonic Forces, a game set to follow in the footsteps of Generations, Colors, and Unleashed before it. I thought, we're back on track. This franchise does have an identity. But then Forces actually came out, and it was a mess. A regression in every aspect with some of the most superficial level design I've ever seen, janky game feel, and a severe lack of content. This was no return to form. 6 years after the high of Generations, Sega had released a showcase of everything that can go wrong with the Unleashed gameplay. But I didn't play this game on release. I saw what it was, mourned what it wasn't, and moved on. By the time I did play it, there was no franchise-dooming context anymore, so I couldn't quite bring myself to give it the Most Disappointing award. On its own merits, Sonic Forces is, hilariously, too pathetic to hate and, in its best moments, strangely endearing.
Adorbs Award.
This award goes to a game I enjoyed for its badness, not in spite of it, and boy does Sonic Forces qualify. Make no mistake, there is so little proper content in Sonic Forces, it feels like they must have scrapped an old concept and made the game we know in a year. The presentation, on the other hand, is genuinely impressive. From its slick UI imbuing a sense of revolution, progress meters, unlockable gear for the character creator, it's as if someone told Sega to bake a cake and they spent $1,000 on the world's best icing only to slather it on a cracker. I'd call Forces inventive in its efforts to convince you you're playing an actual game, and its ace in the hole is the melodramatic guerrilla warfare story.
Sonic is gone, Amy, and Tails has just lost it.
I have no idea if this plot is meant to be earnest or ironic, but it sort of feels like both. I mean, just check out the new villain and his Linkin Park-esque theme song. Is this for real? Lastly, I want to discuss that skeleton gameplay a bit more. It's famously possible to drop the controller and prepare and eat a sandwich during one of the double boost sections, but I wanted to mention the game occasionally punishes you for trying to play it. During an early boss fight against Zavok, I got stuck for a while trying to time the jump button to when Zavok is vulnerable. It turns out you're meant to simply wait, as Sonic will jump automatically. As a cherry on top, getting Zavok to his last, third of health triggers a non-interactive cutscene in which Sonic just decides to beat the ever-loving snot out of him. You can't make this shit up. Forces is not where I wanted the franchise to go, but it's a good laugh.
Greatest Nemesis Award.
A unique part of what makes video games enjoyable is the way they make us overcome obstacles in order to proceed. This resistance is what gives our victory meaning. But then there are those obstacles that halt us in our tracks to the point where we want to tear our hair out. This award goes to the obstacle that most inspired a personal vendetta. Shockingly, for the first time ever, we have a tie. First up, we have Chapter 20 from Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. This mission features wizards sitting outside of immediate attack range, who love putting your units to sleep or turning them berserk. So you can imagine how much fun it is to force your whole squad through a narrow enclosed space when your strongest warrior can turn traitor at any moment and the one guy who can cure berserk is having a snooze in the corner. If you want to survive this chapter with minimal heartbreak, you'll be at it for a while. My second greatest nemesis this year is this thing. That's right, the Wii remote. When I was 12, I was a king at Mario Kart Wii. Rainbow Road was my bitch. I was also using a GameCube controller. Now that I'm using this piece of junk, I can't even beat my girlfriend on Moo Moo Meadows. What the fuck?
Most Impressive Award.
When you think about it, making a new Smash Bros. Game truly worthy of the title Ultimate is such a tall order. It's a borderline unreasonable concept. Consider everything the Smash series is and has been. 1. A pick-up-and-play, free-for-all party game in which unpredictable items and stages bring triumphant joy and incredulous defeat to your friends on the couch. 2. An innovative platform fighting system with a focus on movement that's deep enough to inspire an entirely grassroots tournament scene lasting over 15 years. 3. A feature-rich single-player experience with plenty to unlock. And 4. A shrine to decades of gaming history in which Link, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Snake, Simon Belmont, and this dude from Pikmin 3 can coexist in beautiful 3D. So basically all you need to accomplish is a hilariously unfair but painstakingly balanced, all ages accessible multiplayer-focused esport with hours of single-player content that lets you play as a dog. Then consider how the sheer workload of making each game bigger and better has genuinely put the director's health at risk. Chop chop, you've got 2 years. But by God, they actually pulled it off. They actually made the ultimate Smash. No matter what kind of Smash fan you are, you've been catered to. The exciting, high-stakes gameplay of punishing combos and weaker defensive options finally returns for the competitive crowd, but it's also married to the streamlined, accessible controls that makes modern Smash so much better for casuals. There are better competitive online options, a wacky new stage morph feature, and squad battles which appeal to both groups. This balance is so brilliantly tuned that for the first time in what feels like ever, fans from every corner of the Smash community are embracing the same game after years of division. The single-player guys have a meaty, sprawling campaign to work through, and also a 70-plus roster of characters to unlock. Ultimate's roster is absolutely mental. every single character to ever appear in Smash Bros, regardless of obscurity or legal headaches, is back. Nobody's favorite character is missing. Not only is this the greatest shrine to gaming history yet, it's also a shrine to its own series. As a lifelong Smash fan, I am beyond grateful to have a new favorite installment in 2018. They really did pull it off. This truly is the ultimate Smash game, and maybe one of the best games ever made.
And then they're adding DLC!
Worst Game Award.
Okay. One more Sonic game. Worst game this year goes to Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1. I've technically played less fun Sonics this year, but I'm giving it to this one on account of it having no soul. You have to understand that the classic era of Sonic is like a shining beacon for Sonic fans. A set of games that, while a little aged, are beautiful works of passion with an unforgettable aesthetic and groundbreaking ambition on a creative and technical level. Then after years and years and years of franchise missteps, Sonic 4 comes in and declares itself
A numbered sequel.
the real Sonic is back! Only to release with an eye-searing imitation of the old aesthetic, absolutely atrocious game feel, and a cold dead hole where ambition used to be. Indeed, Sonic 4 is one of the most dispassionate pieces of so-called art I've ever experienced. It does the bare minimum to passingly resemble the good old days, without remotely capturing their heart. Listen to this ear-ravaging instrumentation. Look at how 3 of this numbered sequel's 4 levels are literally indistinguishable from the games it's aping. God, doesn't Sonic's stiff 2-frame wrist waggle on the title screen say everything you need to know?
How nostalgic.
Surely you'd think such an insult means the ultimate death of the franchise, right? Wait, when did this game come out? 2010? What was the next game in the series? Oh, one of the best Sonics ever? Well, this certainly throws a wrench into my modern golden years claim, doesn't it? And what came out in the same year as the devastating Sonic Forces? Oh, one of the best Sonics ever? I can flex my nerd-raging muscles all day on the trajectory of the Sonic franchise, but the truth is, it's always been an unpredictable clusterfuck, where a seeming slam dunk can fall on its face, and an awesome surprise can pop out of literally nowhere. So I guess the lesson is, my Sonic expectations should be literally nothing. That way, I can't possibly be hurt ever again. Oh, this is meant to hurt me, isn't it? Well, nice try, Sega, but I've had my heart broken enough times by Sonic, so this is all you got, huh? It's just some horrifying leg muscle there. I don't care.
Game of the Year!
Well, here we are. Once again, my favorite game to release in 2018 is also my favorite game I happened to play in 2018. My game of the year is not Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Don't get me wrong, I love that game. Part of the reason it missed out is that these games are cornerstones that stay with you for years to come. Half the fun is in the slow burn characters you take a while to discover, the friends you meet, evenings spent laughing on the couch. It's the memories you make. The game's still young. I didn't even go to my first Ultimate tournament or pick a main before 2019 began. But there's a larger, more honest reason Smash hasn't snagged my game of the year. I mean, it does seem scientifically crafted to be my ultimate dream game, and it is, but sometimes it's something new, something we didn't know we wanted that brings true meaning. This time, it was Celeste. As I mentioned earlier, 2018 was a rough year for me. I was unemployed, depressed, and dealing with personal issues that had festered so long they felt immovable. Part of me, like I was just gonna keep letting myself and everyone who cared about me down. At times, I hated myself. That's where Celeste met me. But as long as you occasionally feel lost, like you have something to prove to yourself, like life is slipping through your fingers, in other words, as long as you're human, and like platformers, you'll find something important in this game. You are Madeline, a girl climbing Celeste Mountain in the hopes of finding herself. Unfortunately, this plays out a little more literally than you'd hope, as the mountain manifests Madeline's dark side as an independent, malicious entity. Only by facing this challenge may Madeline be granted the self-acceptance she seeks. It's a simple premise, but it's executed with such masterful unity of mechanics, presentation, and poignancy, it's hard to imagine a more perfect game. Some of you might be picturing a dialogue or story-based walking sim from that description, but you'd be sorely mistaken. Celeste is a no-nonsense platformer that feels overwhelmingly hard at times, much like life. But despite that, it's not an extremely punishing game. With instant respawns and no game overs, the focus is less on inconvenient punishment and more on giving the player every opportunity to get back up again. No excuses, keep trying. Celeste's gameplay sits somewhere between exciting and grueling. Those who persevere will be treated to some of the most raw and vulnerable character writing I've ever seen, a beautiful, breathtakingly evocative soundtrack, and God, I don't even know where to begin with the polish. Those little noises they use instead of voiceover are almost more emotive than any actor could hope to achieve because our heart fills in the gaps. Celeste is my game of the year because not only is it an unbelievably well-crafted product firing on all cylinders, but because it gave me something important when I needed it most. I'm not going to spoil the game or its arc here, but I will leave you with a few words from the devs that really touched me.
So there is one thing I want to say though. If Celeste has helped you come to terms with mental illness, I just want to say that you deserve credit for that. That change came from inside of you, and you're capable of a lot more. Thank you.
Well, you've made it to the end of the awards. Time for my final thoughts on my gaming year. I've often struggled to properly engage with media in my darker times. Super Mario Odyssey is a good example where I just felt guilty reaching for escapism. I barely played games at all for a large chunk of 2018 because of that. But not all art is running away. Sometimes you need to give yourself a break and enjoy something, and sometimes art might be holding the very thing you need to hear most. My gaming goal for 2019 is to pursue a healthy relationship with games. Approached mindfully, games are a very valuable thing to have in your life, and there's so much cool shit out there that I don't want to miss out anymore. Thanks so much for watching. And don't worry, I'm doing alright at the moment. But seriously, how the fucking sake allow this?